Nice. Fantastic. It is very nice to meet you. Thank you for reaching out and for allowing me to dive into your chart.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
I know that you have had astrological readings in the past, so you're quite familiar with with the language, the lingo, and so on. One thing to keep in mind is that I use the whole sign house system, and maybe this is what you used in the past, or maybe other astrologers used a different house system. Basically, in the whole sign house system, everything that is in Virgo would be in your first house. Your South Node in Libra would be in the second house. Neptune and Scorpio would be in the third house of communication, and so on. So basically, one sign, one house. That's kind of like how I work from a technical standpoint.
Yeah, I believe I had one reading with the whole house system, whole sign. I actually, it resonates with me a lot more, the whole sign, than the Placidus, where it shifts and puts stuff in different places. And that's why I wanted to do it with you, because you're doing it with the whole sign system.
Yeah.
I enjoy your videos on YouTube. Very informative.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. I've been watching since I think like 2016, 17, somewhere around there.
Thank you.
Yeah. On and off, of course.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure, and I'm glad to hear that they have resonated with you. I know that you've got questions. So you mentioned in your email that you're very interested in your stellium and Virgo, career, finances, and talents. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, it does.
Perfect. So just to take a little bit of a step back, would you like me to focus on natal lifetime themes, or what's happening now in the sky in the future, or maybe a combination of both?
A combination of both would be nice.
Gotcha. Present and natal and future. Let us dive in, and please feel free to interrupt me. Please feel free to ask questions in the meantime. The first thing that obviously struck me when I looked at your chart, I'm like, wow, you've got a lot of planets in Virgo. The question that came to mind was, what do you do with all of them? Because the way I see it is, all of these planets are in your first house, so they're very much linked with like who you are, your potential, your talents, your skills, and what you're here to embody in this lifetime. Definitely, you've got like a multifaceted personality, maybe even more so than most people. It's almost like you can be like multiple people in one. So I can see how maybe potentially there can sometimes be some challenges in embodying all of these different sides to you, kind of like at the same time, finding a way to kind of like bring them all together, or finding an outlet for all of them.
Okay. It is challenging. Right now I'm an Uber driver. So I drive a lot all over the place. I meet many people a day, different people. Some people want to talk, some people don't want to talk. If people don't want to talk, I'm comfortable and I just shut up and just drive. And if they want to engage in conversation with me, I talk with them. Yeah, and I talk to them about myself and themselves. Another thing that I'd like you to know about me is I'm a recovering drug addict, alcoholic, and I got clean in November 20th, 1994.
1994.
So I've had over 27 years with no drugs or alcohol. And I go to 12-step meetings every week, weekly. I go to like 1 or 2 or more sometimes. Lately, I've been going to more.
Gotcha.
I've been going to about 4 or 5 a week lately. I just decided to get plugged in again. And I just had finished my 11th step. There's 12 steps in the program. And I had a spiritual awakening. It was pretty wild.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I can only say, first of all, congratulations for staying sober for so long, because I know that like this is kind of like an ongoing thing, and it can always feel throughout the entirety of your life as an ongoing thing. It's so interesting that this is coming like like you've gone through the spiritual awakening, and it almost feels like a part of your process is coming to a close. Your secondary progress moon is getting out of your 12th house of isolation, of mental health, and also of addiction on the 17th of November 2022. So in like the next month and a half, I'd say, basically the next couple of years are likely to feel like years when you are going through almost like a personal rebirth. It may feel like you're ready for like new beginnings on multiple different levels of your life with the secondary progress moon moving into your first house. So it's almost like you're getting out of the shadows, you're getting out of like doing the internal work, you're getting out of a period of really kind of like tying up loose ends within yourself, within your psyche, I wanna say. And when the secondary progress moon is moving through the 12th house, there can also be a little bit of a tendency to potentially kind of like isolate ourselves from the world. It may feel like we've got a lot of internal work to do. I'm not surprised that you've gone through a spiritual awakening, because the focus is on the internal life and also on something beyond the 3D material reality. But now in November, it looks like internally you're ready to kind of like start fresh, so almost kind of like reset your life, reset your approach to life. You may even feel physically, you might start to feel like you have more energy, like you have more kind of like vitality, like you're physically able to do more. Whereas beforehand, I want to say until November of this year, there may have been kind of like times of like almost like energetic leakage. Let's call it this way, especially in the past 2.5 years.
So my progressed moon was about 2.5 years
in your 12th house.
12th house.
That's
you know
right.
What's been happening to me in the past 2.5 years?
Tell me.
I've been sleeping a lot, like 12 to 15 hours a day.
Oh my God, yes.
Is that why?
That's it. Yes. That's it. Literally. It is so funny because the 12th house is also the house of dreams. So they literally feel like, I just kind of like have to like escape from the world. And
my God. I thought it was COVID. What is my 12th house progressed moon?
I mean, obviously astrology is symbolic. So if you did kind of like suffer from COVID and it may have felt like, oh, you didn't. So maybe you thought like, oh, it's like, it's this kind of like period, the pandemic and so on. It may have correlated with that, but astrologically, I'd say this is why. This is kind of like the reason why. And that's kind of like coming out of your 12th house and it's entering your first house, which is very interesting because the progress moon has not been in your first house for 27 years. And you said that 27.
I've been clean for 27 years. And my anniversary is November 20th, and this is happening on November 17th.
That's it.
Wow.
That's beautiful. So it does feel like in the next 2.5 years, basically from November of this year, from the 17th onwards, it does feel like you're going through kind of almost like a symbolic rebirth. And it's so interesting how it correlates timing wise with what you experienced 27 years ago when you came out of like the dark night of the soul almost. And you're kind of like come out into the light as a new you, as a new person. Something also very important that is happening throughout this birthday year for you, John, is the following. And we're going to talk a lot about this. And I know you've got like you're looking for like specific answers around like finance, career, and so on. But right now, throughout this birthday year, you're going through a 7th house birthday year, which only happens once every 12 years. You're going through a 7th house annual profected year. What does that mean? It means that this is a birthday year very much focused on partnerships, on collaborations, on relationships, on connecting with people, on meeting people that are, I want to say, essential to this process of connecting maybe with a new side of you, maybe with a part of you that you have not tapped into. It is through relationships, partnerships, and collaborations that you may discover a new side to yourself, and also that you may feel much more probably confident in yourself and in your skills and in your abilities, and also in what you can offer to the world, I want to say, in terms of service. I don't know if you're single or if you're with someone right now.
I'm happily divorced.
Gotcha. Are you open to meeting someone new?
No.
What if they come
but I'm
in?
a little open. If I'm a little open, if I'm a very little open, but my interview is going to be very thorough this time.
Gotcha.
I don't want to put someone in that might cause me harm and damage like my last relationship, my divorce did.
Gotcha. No, that's fair. That makes total sense. I will put it out there. I do believe that there is a very high chance that in this birthday year that started in August, you will probably meet someone. And it's not just I don't know, like a person to date, like a fling or something like that. I do believe that there is a very strong potential to meet someone serious, with a view to maybe commit to this person, or with them being open to commitment. Obviously, you have free will and you can decide to kind of like say yes or no to this person and to a new relationship in some shape or form. I do want to flag that from May of next year onwards, especially from the second half of May, Jupiter, which is the ruler of your 7th house of relationships, is going to start harmoniously aspecting your natal sun, your natal moon, your natal Jupiter, your ascendant, your descendant. This is going to happen all the way until August. You can meet someone earlier. There is a possibility that you could meet them earlier, but I want to say that especially from May until your birthday in August, it may feel like you are growing in your life. You're kind of like moving forward. You're more positive. You're more optimistic. You're more excited about your life. Probably also potentially because of what's happening in your romantic sector. So just to kind of like put it on your radar in terms of where you're at, maybe when it comes to kind of like a broader, a bigger life chapter, I'd say. So this is something that really stood out to me. Obviously, something else that is happening March of next year, transiting Saturn is getting out of your 6th house of day-to-day work. This year, transiting Saturn has been forming a tense aspect with your natal Neptune in the 3rd house of, it's interesting because the 3rd house is also the house of driving. It is the house of short distance travel, of movement, of connecting with people on a day-to-day basis. So this is going to stop. This harsh aspect, this hard aspect is going to stop in January of next year. Why is this a good thing? Because it may feel like you are potentially overcoming already in January, end of January, you might feel like there's a certain kind of like lightness of heart when it comes to your day-to-day work. And it may feel like you are overcoming maybe a period of insecurity, of instability, of maybe a little bit of like confusion as well, of kind of like ambiguity, of not knowing, okay, what's going to come next, or I don't know what like every day is going to bring, and so on. So already end of January, there is kind of like this lightness of heart, such as like I've overcome what feels like an ambiguous time work-wise. Potentially also health-wise, it may feel like you have overcome some kind of like internal, almost like internal doubts, I wanna say. And 2nd week of March of next year, Saturn is getting out of your 6th house of day-to-day work and health. So it's almost like you are completing from December of 2020 until the 2nd week of March of next year, you're completing what feels like one of the hardest chapters work-wise and health-wise in your life. It's coming to an end. There may have been a certain kind of like slowness, sluggishness, maybe a sense of dealing with all sorts of like obstacles at times, dealing with all sorts of maybe delays in terms of work. At times, work maybe being sometimes quite heavy, almost like physically, I want to say. So feeling like, oh, this is like hard for me to do, like physically, I don't have the energy to do it. And also health-wise, I want to say, it feels like you're overcoming like a time of tremendous kind of like you having to be in control and very disciplined and like really feeling like, ah, man, like this is like, sometimes this is very hard to stick to. This is very hard to do on a day-to-day basis. The good news is that that is kind of like ending in the 2nd week of March of next year. So I I did want to put that on your radar from the very beginning. Obviously, you've got like a ton of Virgo energy. So a big part of your life is going to be about work. So let's go to the stellium and Virgo. First and foremost, we have to look at each and every planet in terms of what it wants to accomplish separately, and then how they all come together. Obviously, our sun in Virgo wants to be appreciated, wants to be seen, wants to be acknowledged for, I want to say, your abilities as an expert at something, as kind of like a skilled craftsperson or like a specialist at something, I would say. Also, there may be a sense of pride, because the sun is also connected with pride. There may be a sense of pride in overcoming. The sun is the ruler of your 12th house, in overcoming suffering, trauma, potentially like addiction, because the 12th house is connected with addiction. Overcoming addiction and trauma and suffering via a very Virgo-like approach. So methodically, precisely, with like attention to details, by kind of like sticking to like a regular kind of like set of like habits and a schedule, and like doing this consistently. So that is what your sun wants. It wants to receive that sense of like acknowledgement and appreciation for these, for you embodying these qualities of both being very good and very skilled at something technically, and in terms of craft, and in terms of the work that you do, but also because you have managed, and it's no small feat, to overcome something in the kind of like mental health field, and in the field of like suffering in general, by being able to be so fastidious, by being able to be so careful and so kind of like well organized with your life. I wanna say, your sun is in a tense aspect to Neptune in the third house. It's very interesting because we have a double, let's say, theme of suffering connected with you being seen and appreciated for who you want to be. Also a double theme of suffering connected with a father, I'd say.
My father passed away when I was 18 and a half. He got electrocuted under a dishwasher trying to fix it at the restaurant.
Gotcha.
So, and I was already using drugs at the time. I started using drugs around 17, and I quit around 27.
27. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And I also, in 2018, published a poetry book.
Yes.
And Water Slide Time Machine. This is my book right here. Water Slide Time Machine Portals.
It looks beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Unveiling the Holy Grail of Justice. That's amazing.
Yeah. So I sell it in my Uber, and I also have it on Amazon. And I have another book, a sequel to this, that I have basically already all the poems picked out. I just have to type it up and edit it. Gotcha. And I haven't found the time to do that yet.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, I'll put it out there, John. You're clearly someone who is, it's part of your identity. It's part of like who you are. With Mercury conjunct your ascendant, and also conjunct Jupiter, you are naturally at heart, I want to say, a writer, a speaker, a communicator, and a storyteller, because that's what Jupiter is about. And it's part of like, in order to feel like yourself in this lifetime, you have to somehow embody all of those planets in the first house. Like I said, it's not an easy thing to do. And I kind of like, I see that and I recognize that. So you have to somehow find an outlet, and it sounds like you have found it, to speak your truth, to speak about your life philosophy, Jupiter, to speak about how you find meaning in the world, again, Jupiter, to speak about faith, to speak about, I want to say a sense of finding optimism and opportunity in life, maybe even in the darkest of times, I would say. I'd also say that you're called to somehow embody the role of the teacher for others. You are naturally someone who is a teacher at heart, with Jupiter and with Mercury in your first house. This is part of your identity. I don't know if you've ever been like a teacher throughout your life. I don't know if this is something that you have done up until this point. You could say that to a certain extent, to a certain degree, you do that through writing and through your poetry books. On the other hand, you have Jupiter and Mercury in your first house, and also the moon, which is the ruler of the 11th house of groups of people. I do believe that there's something around kind of like talking about yourself and about your own experiences and about your own kind of like processes and methodologies, and also about your own life philosophy, talking about it in a wider group of people and somehow kind of like teaching others how you approached a specific kind of like process of work. And you kind of like stepping into the into the spotlight, having kind of like almost like an audience, and sharing your own experience, and that being almost like an educational process for others that they can take on and they can apply in their own kind of like day-to-day life, in this very kind of like almost like ritualistic manner, based on daily consistent habits. I'd say I can see where the writing comes from. I mean, I can see that Sun in aspect to Neptune in the third house of writing and speaking and communication. I can see Mercury in your first house. You are naturally very skilled at writing, at speaking, at communicating very, very clearly, very meticulously, at communicating with great detail, at explaining things to others, I'd say. And you also have Venus, which is the planet of art, in your first house of identity. So it's quite easy for you, and it's conjunct Mercury. It's quite easy for you to communicate and to express yourself somehow artistically, I would say. Now I want to ask you the following. So is there, let's put it this way. You're someone who's very kind of like contained and like put together, and I can see why you have almost kind of like had to become that through your own experiences as well. So through kind of like dealing with like taking drugs and maybe kind of like feeling a little bit on the verge of like life and death. So you had to kind of like bring yourself together and kind of like stick to like a well hashed out plan of going through life, and kind of like keeping yourself busy by doing useful things and so on. The interesting thing is, you have your North Node in this lifetime and Saturn, which are both connected with karma and what we're here to learn, in the 8th house of psychological transformation and death and rebirth. The 8th house is also the house of death in general.
Yeah.
And Mars, the ruler of your North Node, is placed in the 12th house of surrender, of dissolution, addiction again, but it's also a very spiritual house, a very mystical house, a house that transcends the 3D material reality. I'd say this, there's something in your life that you're called to learn, and maybe you have learned it, around embracing the extremes of existence and embracing them almost, how should we say, without moral judgment, without kind of like feeling guilty, without judging yourself, without beating yourself up, without thinking, oh, this is kind of like a bad thing, I've done a bad thing and I should not be kind of like experiencing this, or I should not do this with my life. There's something around kind of like experiencing even like the shadow side of life, and kind of like taking it in almost as a way of testing your courage in these kind of like emotionally overwhelming times. I want to say many times people with the North Node in the 8th house have to learn about death somehow. It can be physical death, it can be figurative death, so personal transformation, going through like a phoenix rising from the ashes is kind of like a process. There's a lot of crisis in the lives of people generally with the North Node in the 8th house, because that's what you're here to learn, that things don't stay the same, that things aren't going to kind of like preserve their stability and predictability, no matter how well you do your job, no matter how attentive you are, no matter how careful you are, no matter how much you plan in advance, there's still kind of like an element of like crisis and transformation and the unknown that you're called to learn to embrace as a natural part of life, and that you're also called to face, not with judgment and self-criticism and thinking, oh, I could have done better, or I should have done better, or I should have been able to fix this, or I should have been able to prevent this, but to embrace it with courage and to say, I'm going to handle this from the boldness and the courage of my heart. I'm going to like power through, I'm going to push through, I'm going to come out the other end, even if it's scary, even if I'm dealing with more than I can handle. There's also something around learning to, and please forgive me, I mean, I realize that maybe some of the things that I'm saying could be triggering, so I don't mean them.
No, don't worry about that.
Okay, thank you.
Keep going.
I think there's also something around kind of like learning to own for you in this lifetime, rather than judging them, learning to own your, let's say, less palatable, less kind of like pleasant, or less, let's say, appreciated or validated instincts. So the part of you that wants to fight back, the part of you that wants to go to literally like go after what they want without holding yourself back, your self-assertion, your self-assertive instinct, your desires, your wants, even your anger, I want to say. There's something about owning all of these and seeing them as kind of like an essential part of who you are, rather than feeling like you have to be the one that's kind of like contained and put together and self-critical and always kind of like focused on service and on doing the right thing and on maintaining like peace and stability and creating compromise and so on. And life might have, by the sounds of it, life may have pushed you into like some very extreme types of situations where you had to like maybe either like fight back or feel like your life is completely being like destabilized. I want to say basically what can hold you back in this lifetime is trying to preserve things as they are and trying to create a predictable life. What is likely to give you a sense of I'm growing and I'm evolving is embracing the unknown, embracing change, embracing transformation, embracing your desires and your wants and going courageously after them. Not trying to be someone that pleases people any longer, but just going kind of like after what you want unabashedly. Even if
that's like my North Node in Aries.
That's right. That's right. There's also something around owning the Aries part of you. So the anger, the individuality, the defensive side of you that, like I said, that isn't kind of like trying to please others or maintain the peace or be the one that builds a bridge, but rather is saying, no, this is important to me. And you're kind of like crossing my boundaries. And I'm going to like push you back, I would say. There's also something, the North Node is in the 8th house, which is, it is also a relationship house, which is very interesting. It's an interesting combination, North Node and Aries in the 8th house of intimacy. There's something around learning to ask for what you want and to prioritize what you want, what's important to you on an individual level in relationships. Because you are, of course, with the stellium and Virgo, you're naturally very service oriented towards others, because service is always for others. It's not for us. It's like, I'm doing something useful for you, for like the person in front of me or for someone else. You even have Venus, which is the planet of enjoyment, in Virgo in your 1st house. So there is probably a big part of you that enjoys being of use and being of service to others. On the other hand, the question is, are there maybe desires, wants, instincts, parts of you that you are relegating to the subconscious and that you are not owning and that you are not putting forward to others, especially in intimate relationships, in terms of saying, listen, this is what I need and this is what I want and this is what's important to me. And I'm sorry if you can't, if that's something that you can't like understand, or I'm sorry if you're being judgmental towards that, but this matters to me. The North Node in Aries in the 8th house is an interesting lesson of knowing how to be selfish also in relationships, also knowing how to be direct and blunt and straightforward in relationships. So how to kind of like be candid and be in people's faces in a way, not running away from conflict in relationships. On the absolute contrary, kind of like saying the hard thing, or like sometimes letting your anger come to the surface, because many times it takes anger for people to realize, okay, I really upset you. I'm sorry that I upset you. I didn't mean to. So from like, you have almost like this excessive, because it's a lot of Virgo energy, this excessive kind of like instinct to be in the service of others. And that may actually lead to repressing certain parts of you that are selfish, let's say. And selfish maybe is a bad word because it has like a negative connotation, but that are individualistic. I'd say there's also something around learning to ask from others in a very direct and straightforward manner for acknowledgement and for appreciation, because Mars is in Leo, and Leo is about attention. That's like, I do want to receive attention and appreciation. I do want to feel validated and seen for what I bring into the relationship. I'm also going to put it out there. There's something that I see in the chart, and maybe you know this better than anyone else. So you mentioned that your father passed when you were 18, and that's kind of like that's the first nodal axis return. So once every 18, 19 years approximately, the transiting nodal axis reaches the same kind of like signs that it was in at the time of birth. So that's in a way how we, let's say, how we connect with, how we are pushed into connecting with our mission and purpose. Once again, I would definitely say that you're here to face death full on, and to face almost, the 8th house is also a house of taboos and secrets, and where we feel like, oh, if I was exposed, I would be judged and people wouldn't get it, and I would be kind of like relegated to the sides. I would be an outsider. There's something about owning these parts of yourself and looking at them in the face and saying, yeah, this is a part of me. It's not something that I'm ashamed of. It's not something that I need to like hide. It's not something that I need to judge myself for. It is a part of who I am, and it is a part of my existence, I would say. Mars in Leo. Mars in Leo also generally wants to have fun. So but because it's in the 12th house, there could be a sense of it's dangerous to have fun, or I feel guilty for wanting to have fun. And I also feel guilty for wanting to be appreciated as maybe the one who is able to like take the lead and to be in charge, I'd say. North Node in Aries, Saturn in Aries as well. There's also a lesson around being in a leadership position in this lifetime and kind of like seeing yourself as someone who is able to take the lead. Even when it comes to connections, collaborations, and relationships with others. So to basically kind of like be the one that says, okay, this is how we're going to do it. Like, I'm in charge. Kind of like step out of the way and follow my lead, I would say.
In 2015, August, I got divorced.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Gotcha.
And I started a know thyself process. I went into astrology. I went into Myers-Briggs. I went into a lot of personality type stuff and finding out what my career should be and all these things. I started in 2015, 2016. And I also started making ideas and video and audio clips because I wanted to have a YouTube station called Temple John John. And the Temple John John is going to be about my know thyself journey that I've been through and what I've learned over the years and how other people can do their know thyself process, you know?
I love that. I love that. I love that. I love that.
And I also got a domain, a domain called Restoring Our World to Paradise. And it's basically blank right now. There's nothing on it, but it's going to be my YouTube station and other stuff like that on Restoring Our World to Paradise. My book's it's gonna be on there. My other book's gonna be on there. And also, when my dad passed away, my mom she bought apartment buildings in Wheeling, which is a northwest suburb. So I've been managing apartment buildings since 1990. I've been managing them, and I've been doing maintenance on them. And that's what I've been doing with my life, basically. And I used to be a salesperson. I used to be an outside salesperson for a dealership of ADT. I used to knock on 100 doors a day, selling alarm systems for 100% commission. So if I didn't sell, I didn't get paid. So I got really good at convincing people to let me into their homes.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Security. I sold security, basically.
Gotcha.
Peace of mind for people. And I was really good at it. I did that for 3 years.
I mean, I definitely see that I'll put it out there. Mercury in your chart is probably one of the strongest planets. Let me actually see if there's anyone that is like stronger in terms of like traditional dignities. No, Mercury is the strongest. So you can always rely on your Mercury in this lifetime. And Mercury is also the ruler of your career path and the ruler of your life direction and the dispositor. So the king of all those planets in Virgo. So Mercury is the one to really look at. Your Mercury in Virgo is very technically skilled. Your Mercury in Virgo is obviously like very like meticulous, very fastidious, very scrupulous, very like attentive to details. There's also like this ability to like this tremendous kind of like mental ability to understand how things work and also to explain to others how things work from a very kind of like practical, down to earth, grounded viewpoint. I'd also say that there's something about you being very good in this lifetime at kind of like guiding people through a step-by-step process, which maybe is something that you have done in your jobs up until this point. Well, I'd also tell me.
Hold on, in my 12-step program, I've been a sponsor and I sponsor people through the steps.
Oh my God.
Step 1, 2, yeah.
Gotcha. So you're already doing that in your life. I would say that that is a very important part of your vocation. And obviously, like in today's day and age, a lot seems to revolve around career and professional, I don't know, like professional status and so on. But I do believe that the vocation is something beyond our career. It's kind of like what our soul is here to do, what we are skilled at doing. And you've got that Mercury in conjunction to Jupiter. You've got that Mercury in conjunction to Venus, in conjunction to Pluto in the first house. It's like you're the guide that talks people, that explains to people in like a very practical, down-to-earth manner. You explain to them how to go through a meaningful process, Jupiter, in order to transform their lives, Pluto, which is the planet of transformation, and in order to achieve that sense of stability and security in their life and that sense of harmony in their life, Venus. Venus is also the ruler of your second house of money, assets, resources, skills. So what you kind of like bring into the service of others, I'd say. There's definitely skills around prioritization. There's definitely skills around fixing, literally like seeing what the problem is and in a very kind of like laser beam focused manner, actually like fixing what the problem is. There's skills around editing and productivity and kind of like being productive and useful for others, I would say. You're clearly someone who's very organized. You're clearly someone who is very service oriented and who is kind of like constantly developing themselves. So I'd say it's very interesting that you have so many planets in the first house. You have a stellium in the first house. a big part of what your soul is here to do is to learn what you have been doing, to learn who you are, and also to learn who you can be, to uncover your personal potential, I want to say. Because I don't know if like you as a 17-year-old ever thought that you would be, I don't know, like guiding others as a sponsor through probably one of the like most life-altering processes of their entire lives. I'd say. It's very interesting that what you're doing for others in the 12-step program is very much also you being the leader, Mars, for others in very dark times. The 8th house, the 12th house. So Mars is the ruler of the 8th house of like death and rebirth and psychological transformation. It's in the 12th house. Like there's a lot of like almost like a sense of confusion and loss in the 12th house. It's like, I'm lost. Where am I going? And you're someone who is kind of like taking the lead for others in this kind of like very like murky process of their life. And it's also very interesting that you can be, not only are you a good leader in this sense, but you are also someone that brings almost like this upbeat quality. Because Leo, after all, is a fire sign. So it's like, yeah, you can do it. Like kind of like motivating them and kind of like giving them confidence and kind of like pushing them from like the backside. I mean, like, yeah, like you've got what it takes. Like pull yourself together and like you can make it happen. So there's also this like quality of inspiring, I want to say, others in their time of being most likely at a complete loss. I would say. I also see you, based on your chart, as someone who is almost like a guide for others in times of tremendous kind of like personal, like death and rebirth and upheaval and transformation and turmoil. Yeah. And you're kind of like the one that points the direction forward. I would also say that there's maybe like the challenge with so many planets in Virgo is that you may always be so focused on kind of like improving yourself and therefore always focusing on what you're missing and lacking and on where you're not good enough, that sometimes you may lose track of what you have accomplished so far, of how far you've come, basically. Mm-hmm. So I do believe that that can be a challenge. You also have Venus, the ruler of your south node, in the first house. So there's kind of like an appreciation of developing yourself, an appreciation of working on yourself, of constantly feeling like you're growing and you're improving yourself. On the other hand, I would also remember when you're working with others, when you're being almost like I think there's a word for it that the Egyptians had, which is the psychopomp. It's the guide that helps people kind of like go from one life to the other.
Okay.
When you're acting as this psychopomp, I think that's where you need to act with tremendous confidence in yourself, with courage, with boldness, and to act from the heart rather than so much from the kind of like analytical like head. I'd say, and maybe from a place where you're thinking, oh, like I'm still struggling with some of these things, or like sometimes I have my own doubts. Maybe I'm not that good at like this whole thing that I'm like guiding others on. So really to act from a place of like, no, like my heart knows what to do. And that's the most important thing. And that's what's going to propel others forward as well. This is also a lifetime to get very close to people. Now, I'll put it out there. When you have so many planets in the first house, there can be a tremendous focus on kind of like on you, and not from a place of selfishness or from a place of, oh, I'm the most important person. No, but from a place of, oh, there's so much that I can discover in myself, and there's so much to work on, and there's so many things that I could be, and there's so many things that I could do. On the other hand, your North Node is in the 8th house of other people's assets, other people's resources, of psychological transformation, of merging with someone else. The textbook definition of the North Node in the 8th house is really kind of like accepting to work in this very kind of like tight-knit way with others and welcoming others in your life even if that brings a lot of emotional chaos and turmoil, even if that makes you kind of like deal with the unknown, even if that takes away the control and maybe a certain element of the predictability in your life, it's almost like a lesson to learn to trust yourself in the face of the chaos that other people bring into your life, and to know that you're going to see you're going to get out the other way and the other end, because you've seen like much darker stuff and you've managed to come out the other end. You have the sun in the first house, which is the ruler of the 12th. There can be a sense of maybe looking at yourself sometimes as someone who has been somehow maybe oppressed or pushed to the side by society. I don't know if that's something that you have experienced. Maybe you have experienced it in childhood. Maybe you have experienced it. I mean, you have. Gotcha. Yeah. Gotcha. So there can be a tendency to identify a little bit with the outsider, and maybe with a part of society that has been stigmatized in some in some shape or form, and definitely also through what you have experienced with the process of like going through drug addiction and coming out the other end. There may be a sense of also personal identification with it is the addict, but it's also the one that is wounded and suffering. So it's almost like if you think of yourself as the one that is wounded and suffering, and if you kind of like take a sense of, this is who I am, this is my identity, this is my persona, there may be almost like a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy of attracting more of that into your life, of like the universe sending your way instances and circumstances in life where you have to be the self-sacrificial lamb, to kind of like to put it this way. On the other hand, the 12th house is also a house of mysticism and of transcendence, and there's something also about like seeing yourself as someone who is more sensitive and who is more connected with the subtle aspects of reality, the intangible, which is very interesting because you've got so much earth energy. So you're a very down-to-earth, practical human being, like very efficient, work-oriented, you do your job well, you're very productive, you're making yourself useful, you're very good at what you do. But on the other hand, there's also this kind of like completely like different experience to your life that is beyond the 3D, that is beyond the material, that is beyond the tangible. And I do think that there's something around like owning that part of yourself, and the sun generally wants to be seen. The fact that you're writing your book, your second book, the fact that you've written the first one, the fact that you're looking to launch your channel, your website, I'd say that that is absolutely fantastic, because the sun always wants to have an audience. So having an audience for this part of yourself that is more spiritual in nature, that is kind of like connected with the divine, that's exactly like I want to say probably one of the most important, let's say, parts of you feeling like yourself, of you feeling like you're authentic to yourself, I would say in this lifetime. The moon is in the first house. The moon is the ruler of the 11th house. I would say that you have like a very strong sense of identification with a specific group of people. It could be definitely your peers in the 12-step program. There could also be a sense of almost like belonging, in terms of roots, in terms of past, in terms of maybe even like family, belonging to a specific group of people, belonging to a specific, I don't know, like portion of society, and really feeling like, oh, people like associate me with that like group of people, with that part of the collective, with that part of society. I'd also say that in order to feel emotionally safe and secure and stable, you probably also need to put yourself into the service of this group of people that you feel like you're a part of, which by the sounds of it, you're already doing.
Yeah, I am.
Which is fantastic. I mean, I can only say carry on. And I can also say in this lifetime, because life is long, if there are other people that you feel like you personally identify with, if there are other groups of people, other kind of like parts of society that you realize, you know what, like I've got something in common with these people. I relate to them. I would also look for ways to somehow serve or work or bring something of use to this specific portion of the collective. I'd say. You're also someone who is very good at bringing people together. I don't know if that's something that you, I mean, technically you could say that you kind of like use it right now in the group types of activities that you have. I would recommend in the future, if you ever think of like creating your own kind of like program or creating your own kind of like platforms where you teach others, where you guide others, even outside of the current program that you're in, I'd say that you would probably do it beautifully.
I'm just about to sign up. Have you ever heard of Astro Butterfly?
I haven't, no.
They're a group that actually has courses on how to read charts and do astrology charts and stuff like that. I'm going to sign up for that in the next couple of days, and it's going to start next Wednesday. So, but it's a 10-week course, and by the time I'll be done, I'll be certified and I'll be able to read someone's chart.
I absolutely love that. I absolutely love that. That's aligned with your North Node in the 8th house of kind of like stepping into other people's psyche, understanding other people's psychology, and really kind of like helping like guiding others through dark times, through challenging times, but also guiding others in their own process of figuring out who they are and what they want, and maybe kind of like navigating confusing periods of their life. I'd say. I would definitely say that this is something that you can do professionally. Why is that? Well, because you have the ruler of your career path, Mercury, in conjunction with Jupiter, and in conjunction with Venus, which is the ruler of your 9th house. I mean, both Jupiter and the 9th house are generally connected with, let's call it priesthood, but you could say that the astrologer in a way acts as a priest. It's kind of like the connection with like you're connecting like people here on earth with something with the divine. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. So I'd say that it's a beautiful representation. Plus, you also have Pluto and Uranus in the 1st house. So Pluto is the planet of psychology, and Uranus is new age and like innovation and revolution, and it's very age of Aquarius in nature. So it's very much kind of like almost like pushing people into the future somehow and connecting them with like a novel revolutionary perspective of their lives, but done in this very like grounded, down to earth, almost like applicable in the day-to-day Virgo manner. I would bring things, whatever you do career-wise, John. And I do think that you're probably going to make a fantastic astrologer for a variety of reasons, but also because you have gone through incredibly testing times on a personal level. And that gives you a sense of connection and empathy towards others that maybe other types of lives and experiences would not have given you.
I see.
My recommendation would be whatever you do moving forward career-wise, including astrology, it would be to like bring it down into the day-to-day, into the practical. So to kind of like explain to people, okay, like what can you do with this information? Like how can you make the most of it on a day-to-day basis? How does this apply to your day-to-day life? I wanna say.
Okay.
That's the first thing. The second thing would be to really kind of like push people to be courageous in revealing to you what is it that they truly want, and to help them clarify what is it that they truly want, because you do seem to be called to kind of like explore maybe the hidden layers of someone's psyche to like bring back to the surface. I'm going to give you an example. Let's say someone comes to you and they say, oh, like I've been feeling like super like annoyed and restless because of my job lately, and I don't know what's going on in the sky. And you look at their chart and you say, well, actually, what you really seem to want right now is maybe more like a feeling of being seen and acknowledged and validated by your significant other. And that's what you're not getting. And maybe that's also kind of like causing a sense of feeling like you're not in the right place work-wise, or that job is being super annoying and frustrating. So kind of like helping people dive to the deeper layers of their psyche and say, what is it that you truly want? And to help them connect with that. That's how I would look at it. Definitely you are here to have an audience in this lifetime. With the moon, the ruler of the 11th house of audiences, and with the sun, which is connected with being seen in the first house. So this is a lifetime for you to be seen, to kind of like be to be somehow in the spotlight, I would say. And to, of course, with so many planets in the first house, you probably in some shape or form have always felt seen. Or maybe there was a sense of like not being able to like lie low, to kind of like lie under the radar, I would say. But because all of these planets are in Virgo, you being so seen by others may have actually caused, how should I call it? Sometimes like too much self-consciousness. Almost like a feeling of like, oh, like there's so many things within me that I need to work on that are maybe not okay as they are. And like people are noticing them and I'm being criticized for them, or like that's maybe what you kind of like pick up potentially from others. Remember that your South Node is in Libra. This is not a lifetime for you to be liked by others.
Okay, I get that.
That's how I would look at it. It doesn't matter whether you're liked or not. Like that's not what you're here to do. You're here to kind of like push people to face their demons, like help others through transitions, you yourself to face the darker kind of like sides of reality, and to say like, listen, life is not a picnic. It's not a walk in the park. There is like tremendously kind of like overwhelming experiences, and there's like hard stuff, and there's extremes, and there's transformations, and you have to like build yourself up from scratch. So life is not like, oh, I want to make sure that I don't upset you. That's something to really forget about. It's like, it doesn't matter whether you upset some people. It's okay. You're probably going to upset a lot of people anyway. Like we all do in some shape or form. You might be a little bit more sensitive to that, however.
I say offense is taken, it's not given.
Correct. Yeah. Very good way to put it. So those would be kind of like my two cents. I can also see that you've got Jupiter, the ruler of your 7th house and of your IC, in the 1st house of identity. Okay, so let's put it this way. The more confidence and faith you have in yourself, in your skills, in your mind, in your life perspective, in your worldview, in your knowledge, the better your relationships are likely to go, and the more enjoyable your home life is likely to be. The more you beat yourself up, the more critical you are towards yourself, the more dissatisfied you are with yourself, the more dissatisfied the partner is likely to be with you. The more it may feel like there's never kind of like a time to kind of like catch your breath at home within your kind of like home and domestic life. I'd say that you're in the service of many people, including in the service of the family, with Jupiter in the 1st house in Virgo, Jupiter being the ruler of the 4th house of home and the past. And obviously I know that there's already, and Jupiter is conjunct Mercury, the ruler of your career path. Obviously I know that there's already kind of like a work involvement with the family. So you manage like buildings, like apartment buildings for the family. So that makes total sense. And it may feel like something that you kind of like have to do in this lifetime. What is very interesting is the following. So you don't have any water in the chart, and you don't have any air in the chart. Now, with no water in the chart, definitely, I would recommend that you make it an essential part of your day-to-day, either having, and you have it already, either having like a creative outlet, so writing poetry, or it could be something else, or a spiritual outlet, or both. So clearly you write poetry, so that's a way to kind of like channel your emotions, and that's a way to connect better with your emotions.
Yeah.
If you don't connect with your emotions, there could be all sorts of challenges, including from a physical health perspective, because blocked emotions generally result in health-related issues. There may also be this sense of I don't know what I need. What are my needs? Like, what are my what do I really feel? What are like, what nourishes me? What nurtures me? So I do believe that writing, and especially kind of like writing creatively and writing out of the heart, is likely to help you connect more deeply with your feelings and your emotions, and give you a sense of almost like a weight being lifted off your shoulders, I'd say. And having a spiritual practice, for instance, praying every day.
Yeah, I have a prayer meditation that I do. That's part of the 11th step of Narcotics Anonymous. So I have my at night I do my inventory. I pray and I do my inventory before I go to sleep. And in the morning I have my prayers and my 6-minute meditation.
I love
silence
that.
And 6-minute meditation of music. I play bass guitar too.
I love that. I love that. I love that. So there's like so much creative there's like so much kind of like creative like energy within you. That's beautiful. And also you've got that kind of like connection with like something outside the day-to-day via meditation, via prayer. I'd say that's fantastic in order to keep yourself balanced in this lifetime, and in order to feel like you're like reaching that point of, I think there's a word for it, homeostasis.
Homeostasis.
Yes,
yeah.
That's it. Yeah. That's it. With no air in the chart. Now that's an interesting one. Your houses of substance. So what you do work-wise, your 2nd house, your 6th house of day-to-day work, and your 10th house of career, they're all governed by air. So definitely whatever you do career-wise, you're called to do something that involves working with people, communications, meeting a lot of people, sending across to people information, picking up information, kind of like making sense of maybe like technically complex information, explaining things to others, working with wider groups of people, working with audiences, also working with abstract kind of like notions and data and so on. And I'd say that you have done like a form of that throughout your life.
Yeah.
Which is a great thing. I mean, definitely you have listened to that calling to kind of like connect with the energy of air through the work that you do, which is what you're here to do in this lifetime. The only challenge with not having air in the chart is you may be doubtful many times, probably for not the right reasons. You may be doubtful of your level of knowledge.
Okay.
So there could be almost like constantly kind of like this feeling of like, do I know enough? Am I knowledgeable enough to like talk about these things, to like maybe teach these things, or like to share this type of information with others? You probably are, because you have a domicile, a Mercury in domicile, but that doesn't mean that the doubt isn't still there, because there is no air natally. So just putting it out there. It's almost like really kind of like recognize that sometimes your mind could be kind of like messing with you and making you doubt things that you are actually very skilled at, because there isn't like this natal connection with the energy of air. I've also noticed in my practice a lot of people who don't have air in the chart either work as teachers or work in communications. Their work involves like writing every day. There's kind of like this element of like daily connecting with air, which it sounds like you're doing. So I can only recommend that you continue to do it. And even when you work with clients on a one-to-one basis, I would say that you're tapping into that energy of like sharing and exchanging and kind of like mirroring, which is very air-like. You've asked me about skills. I definitely say that you're very skilled at forming connections with others, at being very diplomatic, at helping other people solve their problems. You're someone who is, again, how should I say, you're excessive. This sounds like a bad thing. You're so good at analysis and at seeing kind of like the nature of a problem and explaining it to others, and kind of like finding solutions from their, almost by putting yourself into their position, like by looking at a problem from their standpoint. You have this technical mind. That's why you probably know a lot of astrology already, and it's very easy for you to master this type of topic, which is, it is after all quite an abstract topic. So it's not for it's not necessarily for everyone. I mean, like some people say, oh my gosh, like there's so much to memorize. I'm like, yeah, kind of. So you do have this exceptional attention to detail and this exceptionally analytical and objective mind that can work with data and with information that a lot of people would not be able to work with. I'd also say that you know how to make yourself liked. I mean, you know how to mirror someone, you know how to talk to people, you know how to adapt your discourse and your speech to others, you know how to use, I want to say, language that is kind of like on people's level, whatever that level may be, or wherever your target audience may be coming from. I want to say, you're also probably very good, and I know you've experienced this in your life. You're good at breaking things down into smaller steps, which is not a small thing, because a lot of people don't tackle their goals and their objectives in life because they are overwhelmed by the magnitude of the task. They look at something and they say, this is huge. I'm never going to be able to do it. This is such a big thing. Like I can't do it. It's like, it's too much. So you're someone who can kind of like break it down for them and say, hold on a second. You don't have to like do it all now, tomorrow. Start small. And I'm gonna walk you through it. So it's definitely an asset. It's definitely a skill. You know this better than I do, but there can almost be this, how should I say, this amazing ability to select what is important for others. So again, it goes back down to your abilities to be an editor, to be a curator for other people, and to select, okay, this is the essential, this is what's important, this is what needs to come out of your life. This is how you do a cleanup. This is how you clean up the various kind of like aspects of your life by improving the various like parts and like subsections of your life. You're going to improve the whole. You also have this ability, I mean, because you've got both Jupiter and Mercury in Virgo, you can see the details and the big picture at the same time.
Wow.
Because like some people see like either or. I mean, like I'm personally like a big picture person. Like if you ask me to go through the minutiae, I'm like, no, someone else can come and do it. Like I'm okay. I'm okay. I'll pass it on. You have this ability to see both the forest and the trees at the same time. I would remember, however, in your life, for balance, for equilibrium, I would remember to have fun.
Yeah.
I would also remember to ask from others for what you need out of them, because you give so much to others that sometimes it may feel like you give everything that you are to others, and you're like, okay, what about like for me, like what did I get out of it? I'd also say that there is kind of like a calling to experience in this lifetime, the adrenaline of life. And I do believe that this is also maybe something to experience in relationships a lot. Now, how can you go about this? Well, if there's anything that you want to experience in this lifetime that feels taboo in relationships, my big recommendation would be to like not judge yourself and to go experience this. That's it. I mean, whatever taboo means for you, like taboo for me might be a completely different thing compared to like what taboo means for you. So that's something to kind of like connect with on a personal level, but to really say, listen, like I want to do this thing in relationships, or I want to have a relationship with this type of person, or I want to have a relationship with these parameters, but I also feel like it's wrong. I'm judging myself for it. I'd say go ahead and like, don't judge yourself for it, because this is a lifetime to dance with the shadow rather than to be kind of like overly focused on like walking the straight and narrow. Mm-hmm. You're always going to be good at walking the straight and narrow. You're walking the straight and narrow from like a place of like where many people have lost themselves. So it's almost like give yourself credit for the ability to like keep at it, but at the same time, rather than maybe denying parts of yourself that exist and that would like to experience excitement and would like to experience something that feels forbidden, I'd say go and experience it. Like, and it definitely doesn't have to be drugs. I'd say it has something to do with relationships. If you ask me, I don't know exactly what it is. But there's something connected with desire there, John. Finances and money. Okay, so one last thing. Definitely working with people, obviously, because Libra is the sign that is on the cusp of your second house. So working in one-to-one type of like situations and consultations, but also because Venus is in conjunction with the moon, the ruler of the 11th house of groups of people. So both working one-to-one and with wider groups of people, bringing people together, making connections, explaining things to others, putting yourself into the service of wider groups of people that you belong to. Events, getting people together, organizing group type of events, or kind of like being at the center of group type of events, even if you yourself don't organize them, but kind of like participating in this type of maybe work related like project that also has this kind of like social element to it. So kind of like getting together with others to achieve something concrete and tangible, but there's definitely kind of like an element of like socialization and getting together and also having like fun whilst you're doing the work. I
used to be a chairperson for events for Narcotics Anonymous, and I chaired many events, picnics. I did lots of stuff, and I also went on like paintball. We went to camping. We went white rafting, all that stuff. And I've been a part of that, and I've been helping do that for years. But I haven't been doing that in the past two and a half years. I've kind of like been isolating in the past couple of years.
Makes sense.
But I want to get back into it. Yeah,
I would go back into it. If I were in your shoes, I would personally go back into it, because it does seem to bring you a lot of joy and emotional fulfillment, and it is likely to like bring money as well. So it's not something to do for free. Plus, in traditional astrology, the 11th house from the part of fortune. So your part of fortune is in the first house. Therefore, the 11th house from the part of fortune would be your 11th house in the natal chart, is considered to be the place of acquisition. So where you accumulate wealth. It has to do with groups of people.
Wow.
So definitely there's something there with kind of like group type of events, like connecting with people, working in a group type of environment, helping like a wider group of people achieve their goals and their objectives, and having this kind of like social element to it as well. Also, according to it's a bit of a complicated formula that I'm not going to bore you with. According to the traditional way of assessing the potential for wealth in this lifetime. I mean, it generally looks like you're never going to lack for wealth, because Venus is the ruler of your second house in conjunction with Jupiter. So even if you have to like work to make money, as long as you keep working, you're always going to have financial stability, I would say. But if we look at the potential for wealth in this lifetime, people who have over 6 points are considered to be like able to become like really wealthy. So not like middle upper class income. No, it's like, no, like Oprah has 6 points.
Oh, wow.
And you have 8 points, just as an FYI.
No way.
I kid you not.
That's
so
crazy.
I'd say that you're looking, in general, in this lifetime, you're looking pretty good from this standpoint. Remember, however, that you have your North Node in the 8th house. There's something about doing things that are scary in order to fulfill your financial potential, and collaborating with others, and not being afraid of the turbulence and the transformation and the chaos, especially, that other people bring into your life.
You want to hear my spiritual awakening?
Yes.
Okay. I went to a meeting. I called my friend and he said, yeah, I'm going to a meeting right now. I was in Oak Lawn. And I went to the meeting, and then after the meeting, I was talking with him, and he asked me about myself. He asked me about my mom. He asked me about my sister. He asked me about my niece, and he asked me about Toastmasters, because I used to go to Toastmasters. And then he also asked me about open mics, because I did open mic poetry. And then I was talking to him and I'm like, you know what? To myself, I'm like, I got 5 more rides before I get my bonus on Uber. I better get going before I won't be able to do them. And then I said, oh, thanks. Good, nice talking to you. And I left and I went home. And then when I got my 5 rides, I went home, I got my bonus. And then I was eating my bowl of cereal. And I was thinking about how he asked me about my mom, my sister, my niece, and Toastmasters and everything. And then I realized I never asked him about his mom. I never asked him about his dad.
Gotcha.
I never asked him about his 2 daughters, Joanna and Alexa.
Gotcha.
And I felt like nothing. I felt so small. And I realized I must do this to everybody. And I talked to my sponsor about it. And my sponsor says, John, it's because you're self-obsessed with yourself. You're self-obsessed. That's why you don't ask about other people and connections. So he cared about my family. He cared about me and my connections, what's important to me. But I never cared about what's important to him. I always saw him as a single person. I don't see him as somebody who he cares about too. And that was my spiritual awakening. And now I don't want to treat people like that anymore. You know, and now my Uber driving, my tips have gone up a lot, almost doubled, because I'm more engaging with my
clients. Yeah.
Clients. Yeah.
That is like, I just got goosebumps. That is such a north node in the 8th house thing.
Yeah.
Like really not being afraid to connect with others and to open up to others and have them open up to you, rather than feel like, oh, I gotta be careful. Like I gotta be like focused on myself so that I don't make a mistake. So I don't, yeah. So that's beautiful. I'm really glad that you experienced that. And like, once again, I do believe that there is a tendency to be very harsh with yourself. Like, even like when you said something like, oh, I felt like nothing. It's like, that's judgmental to me. Like, no judgment. It's like, who says that that's a bad thing? I mean, you haven't had an easy life. You've had experiences that kind of like determined you to be kind of like careful and to be kind of like to pay attention, like what you say and how you act and what you do and so on. So it's not coming from a place of meanness towards others. Like,
right.
Definitely it's not something like morally kind of like bad, I'd say. But at the same time, I think it's very powerful that you had this kind of like aha moment where you were like, what about like throwing the ball in their court?
Right.
It was a pleasure to connect with you, John.
Thank you. Thank you for everything. It was a good reading. Thank you very much.
I'm very, very glad to hear. Best of luck with everything. You do know that next year from the middle of May until May of 2024, you have transiting Jupiter moving through your 9th house of publishing. So any and all activities connected with publishing, connected with kind of like spreading your worldview and your life philosophy to the world are likely to land extra like well because of transiting Jupiter in Taurus in the 9th house. So that was kind of like the last thing that I wanted to put on your radar. I'll be in touch with the recording via email.
Okay, thank you very much.
Best of luck, and I'm sending you lots of love and positive energy.
Oh, thank you. I'm sending it back.
My pleasure. I'll leave you to it. Have a great rest of the week.
All right, Rex. Bye-bye.
Bye.